to this week's astrology. Now, this is a week all about soul contracts. That is namely, well, actually, there's a few reasons why, but namely because we have a Libra full moon, which is going to be peaking tomorrow. Now, tomorrow slash Tuesday, depending on where you are. Now, this Libra full moon will be in a lunar mansion called Vishaka. And in Vishaka, we are really dealing with a karmic balance, something that needs to be balanced in our relationships that currently isn't. And it's important to remember when we talk about karmic contracts, we are not talking from just this life, which can be really hard for the small mind, the ego to understand. Because very often, when things happen in relationships, if there's an ending or a beginning, we can kind of tell ourselves a story of how we deserve it. Like, I've worked so hard, or that like I wasn't enough. So like we become this controlling factor in relationships when we're really not. Because if we could zoom out, which is what Libra is all about, the kind of the balance of destiny, if we could zoom out, we would understand that every relationship is karmic. And that can be as simple as like someone you bump into and then never see again. You might have had that little bit of karma you had to sort out with them from another life, through to bigger relationships and people that have more, they're bigger characters in our lives. There is always a past life karmic underpinning to what is taking place. And it's not about kind of, if we think about it in a really limited perspective, we end up in this world of like romance and heartbreak. But if we could zoom out, if we could, but we can't at this level of consciousness, if we could start to understand how the relationships we have make sense based off all of our lifetimes. And they're simply energies that are there to awaken us. Everyone that is in our life serves a purpose, and you can almost think of it like a balance sheet. It's serving, we're paying back debts that are owed to other people as they're paying back to us, as a part of a bigger divine play, as a part of a bigger story that stems across lifetimes and incarnations. And so, something to be really aware of this week, we are in the realm, we're in the playground of karmic contracts and the lessons that come with it. It's just to remember, all relationships are karmic. If you didn't have karma with that person, you wouldn't have a relationship with them. And equally, when that karma is done, we kind of find acceptance with that individual. Everyone is there to teach us a lesson, and everyone is the guru. No matter how much we might be like, no, like they're horrible, they did this horrible thing to me. When we can sit with it, when we can see where that pain comes from within us, we can start to understand that everything is divine and that everything is set up for our enlightenment, and the universe only cares about that. It is not interested in the pettiness of like the ego. It is not interested in giving the ego its way so that it's happy. um Even though in a way, like, the ego is also working for enlightenment, just in a really messed up way. Like, the ego thinks that it will be happy if it has more money, more sex, more power, more love in an external. So it is kind of working the way the soul would, mm, but in a really diluted way, because none of those things will bring lasting happiness. So anyway, so that's like the initial, well, the big energy for this week. And I should just mention before I go further into the astrology, if you want to know where that Libra full moon is showing up in your chart, the ritual and reading is now live. There's details below. Now, today the sun moves into Krittika Nakshatra. It's this is a nakshatra associated with the Pleiades. It will be there until the 25th of May. And it's moving from kind of like Aries to Taurus, um, astronomically speaking. And Krittika is all about discernment. It really gives, and this is a great attribute to have around contracts and karmic contracts. The sun in Krittika is sharp. It's able to be decisive in a way that it isn't always, and it's also able to discern what is true from not true. The sun's really happy in Krittika. It's ruled by the sun. So it can give us, or give the, not the mind per se, but like it can give us a sense of being able to see what's really going on. And even bring some light to the ego, some light to the thoughts that might be permeating these contracts and this karma. Now, on Monday, Parvati is going to be conjunct Iris in Taurus, and Mercury will be conjunct Ariadne. A lot of goddess asteroid energy this week. So Parvati conjunct Iris is deeply spiritual. Iris is the rainbow messenger, like pay attention to rainbows. That's often how she'll show up, like externally. But Parvati is all about devotional love. And when we're talking about karmic contracts, ultimately every relationship is leading us back to the relationship we have with the divine from within. Everything is a reflection of the things that block us, the thinking that blocks us from this. And Parvati can help, almost like help us remember that no one needs to be present in your life for you to love. A desire doesn't have to be fulfilled in order for you to love. You love because it is your nature to love. And Mercury conjunct Ariadne, and Ariadne is the mistress of the labyrinth, is very much about having important conversations. And it's almost like conversations that can't be avoided. And this can be um because Mercury, yeah, it can be like, sorry, it can be around contracts you've got with other people, but it's almost like you have to step into the conversation. You have to have the conversation. You've got to listen. You've really, like, the only way out of what's going on in your life is going through it. You can't withdraw. You'll just get the lesson again. On Tuesday, like I said, we've got the full, well, on Monday, Tuesday, we've got the full moon in Libra in Vishaka, and Ceres will be conjunct Saturn. Both Saturn and Ceres are harvest deities. So this can be a time with the full moon where we're reaping what we sown. Vishaka Nakshatra, where this full moon is very much about patience. And it can be about being gifted a blessing from the universe that has involved your patience over a long period of time. On Thursday, we have a big movement. Jupiter is entering Gemini. Doesn't love being in Gemini because it's ruled by Mercury. He's going to be square the North and South node, and the Sun and Neptune. It's quite a tricky energy. And the Sun will also enter Taurus on that day. It will still be in Krittika Nakshatra. I'll have a full video on what that is about in the link below, or in the notes below. But Jupiter in Gemini, I mean, we're really being challenged to learn, challenged to rise above the details of life, to understand the bigger meaning. Very much kind of like what we're talking about with karmic contracts. We are learning through speaking, learning through our intuition, learning about the news, learning about technology as a collective. And this is very much about listening. And it can almost feel, one way in which Jupiter and Gemini can show up, particularly at the beginning, is almost this feeling of like, you might feel like in life you've progressed so far, or on the spiritual journey, you might feel like I've progressed so far. And what can happen when Jupiter enters Gemini, it almost feels like we're going back to Kindy. Like, oh, I thought I had learnt this lesson. Why am I learning this again? It's that energy. Um, yeah, so just pay attention and be humbled by what shows up. You might find it's Kindy, but it's a new cycle, like it's a different vibration of energy. And then finally on Friday, on Venus Day, Venus enters Ravati. She'll be there till the 31st of May. This is a part of Pisces, and it marks the final nakshatra. Ravati is a place of conscious evolution. We've been through a lot of Venus energy with Venus retrograde. In March and April. And when Venus is in Ravati, it really does tap back into the full moon in Libra. We are dealing with what we don't want to take forward, what we're ready to close the door on, what we have evolved beyond. And that's in the material realm. It can be some ancestral energy that we're sitting in, but it can equally be our relationships. Like, what have we learnt from? And the lesson is now done. And that contract is done too. So just pay attention to that. I quickly mention next week, the sun will align with the Pleiades next Tuesday, and I'm going to be running monthly healing meditations group circle online to work with that energy. There's a couple of places left. The details are below. Have a wonderful week.